softened into a dream the letters of Robert B. Huston, an Oklahoma Rough Rider. Shortly before the demolition of the American Hotel at the corner of 5th Street and Hudson Avenue in Oklahoma City in the late 1960s, someone discovered a box of old letters in the basement. The hotel manager, Ruby Howe, gave the box to her grandson, Thomas Redwine, who kept the letters for 2 years before donating them to the Oklahoma Historical Society. The bulk of that archival treasure was made up of approximately 400 letters written by Captain Robert Bell Houston from Cuba and the Philippines during the Spanish-American War. The collection also included correspondence from his wife, mother, and others to him during the same period. Taken together, the letters represented an overview of both the war front and the home. Vienna Rhodes of Worcester, New York, moved to Guthrie about the same time and began working at the Huston & Huston law firm, where she became acquainted with R.B. Huston. Robert Huston and Vienna Rhodes were married in Guthrie on June 12, 1895, and began their life together at 710 East Cleveland. Their son, Robert Harold, was born on July 18, 1897. Like the American public, Huston must have been aware of the situation in the Caribbean. He continued his work in the law office until the Maine was blown up. When the United States declared war on Spain in April 1898, he began enlisting volunteers. Colonel Leonard Wood organized the first United States Volunteers, the Rough Riders. Huston was appointed captain of Troop D, which came from Oklahoma. Huston left his wife and son in May for San Antonio, Texas, to begin training with the Rough Riders. In his first letter to his wife before leaving Oklahoma Territory, he asked Vienna to be brave and to watch out for their son at all times. The Oklahoma contingent arrived at San Antonio soon after the Arizona group. Colonel Wood met the troop trains and stated that the Oklahoma boys were the best trained in camp. Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt remarked, "This regiment already has a great reputation, and we must maintain it, and every man must do his utmost to help." Huston described their daily activities at Riverside Park in San Antonio in letters to his wife and mother. He trained his men to be the first to volunteer, he told Vienna. "This is my opportunity, and I'm not wearing out the seat of my trousers sitting around." With his wife believing he would never return home, Huston and Troop D headed for Tampa, Florida, and Cuba. Troop D sailed abroad the transport Yucatan, and on June 17, 1898, they were 30 miles from the Cuban coast under the protection of Admiral William T. Sampson's fleet. After landing near Santiago de Cuba, R.B. described his first encounter with the Spanish, the Battle of Los Guatimos, in a letter to his wife on June 27th. The fighting was terrific. Saw one man shot through the right breast, one through the right knee, and another through the left arm. They never surrendered. The man who was shot through the breast started to walk to the rear. I made him lie down, and we went on. The reporter for the New York Journal was shot just over to the right of us. It certainly was a great victory for us. The Cubans captured a Spaniard the same afternoon, and he said to them, "We don't understand those Americans. When we fire, they don't stop. We don't understand those. The faster we shoot, the faster they shoot. They just keep coming. The disadvantage we were under was we could not see the enemy, nor could we see any smoke. There was no groaning or crying out by any of our wounded. Out of D Troop boys, Marcellus Newcomb of Kingfisher, who was shot through the knee, rode to the little town on the coast on a mule smoking a cigarette. The troops all along the trail, who were hurrying up to help us out, cheered him." A few days later, R.B. wrote about this Battle of San Juan Hill. "I can only write a line. Came out of the hard-fought battle of the first and second safe again. Our first battle was hard enough but only lasted 2.5 hours. The last continued all day with a desperate night attack 2 nights afterwards. Our regiment and the 9th and 10th Cavalry had the brunt of it. I was in command of squadron. Had 2 orderlies. One had his leg shattered right behind me. The other shot through knee partially, and I got shot through the hat. I was overcome with the heat before night and had to go down. We are entrenched about 700 yards from the enemy. We are holding the key to the line. We worked all night before last, making props. We had done no fighting for 2.5 days. Have a truce trying to get the Spanish to surrender. They want to quit, but can't go back to Spain if they do." The Spanish in Cuba surrendered on July 17, 1898, but hostilities continued for another month in some locales. By the Treaty of Paris, which was signed in mid-December, Spain gave up sovereignty over Cuba, ceded Puerto Rico and Guam to the United States, and sold the Philippines to the United States for $20 million. Troop D returned to the United States and was mustered out at Camp Witkoff in Montauk, New York on September 14, 1898. The tone of Huston's letter suggests that he wanted to join the regular army through an appointment from President William McKinley. He told his wife, "I expect to go to Washington tomorrow or the next day. I have made applications for appointment as major and paymaster of volunteer. I wired last Sunday to get some letters. I received 3 today and expect to see the president. Brody is going with me. The president appointed Huston to the regular army on September 27, 1898, and began the second phase of his military career. Vienna had misgivings about a full-time military career for her husband, primarily because of the effect on their son. She did not know how she would rear her son alone. His letter described how quickly Harold was growing up and changing since his father left. She thought it a shame her husband was not there to see his cute ways. She apparently even considered contacting the president herself, but noted, "I've decided not to write the president, and then I won't have to be blamed for it. I have no business to write you. When I feel as I do, I feel like rebelling against it all. I talk to the little sweetheart every day about you, but he always says you're dead. I never tell him such a thing. When I cry, he wants to know if I'm sick." Huston and his family moved to Washington, D.C., where he had been assigned to the Paymaster General. With the 1900 census approaching, he applied for the supervisory position of the Oklahoma Territorial Census. Instead, he became paymaster of the 47th Infantry, which received orders to sail for the Philippines during the first week of November 1899. The futility of the Philippine operation became apparent to Huston, and he wrote on May 1st, "The situation hasn't changed any for the better. That is not any nearer a determination since we came here, except that we have broken up their army as one body. They have divided up and scattered, and without more troops, with the forts all open, they continue the state of affairs for a generation. Someone is at fault for the vacillating and wavering policy pursued. All forts have been opened, and the insurgents get all the provisions they want of every kind. The garrisons are all small, so small that only small detachments can be sent out. If more would go there, would be great danger of the towns we hold being burned and our supplies destroyed. We had everything on the run here, and the higher authorities thinking everything was overtook away. Battalion of the 40th leaving us 3 companies. We can now march out and back again. They run away, and we can't go after them. What it needs is a force to take the field and follow them up and drive them to death or submission. We are now doing just exactly what Spain did in Cuba. Occupy some towns and march out in the morning and back at night. This method makes us all tired. While the insurgents are allowed to maintain hospitals in Melina, so I am informed, their prisoners are turned loose. The leaders go unpunished, so of course the things go on. No drastic measures are resorted to at all. We capture Filipino soldiers in town nearly every day. They hide their arms and come in. We keep them a while, make them work, and turn them loose, and they go back to their bands. This is the first time I have given ways to my feelings of indication of the way things are going. We get more news from all the island, and conditions are the same everywhere as this here. In midsummer 1900, Huston's family received the news they had dreaded for 2 years. First Reserve Hospital, Melina. Captain Robert B. Huston, 47th Infantry, was admitted to this hospital May 29, 1900, with a diagnosis of transfer slip, superactive tonsillitis. Fever continued. Original admission to sick report, May 2, 1900. Positive vital reaction, June 30th, 1900. Died at 1:10 p.m., July 6, 1900. Caused typhoid fever. All effects at the hospital were shipped to Colonial Regiment. The worst fears of his wife and mother had been realized. Captain R.B. Huston would not return home, but a century later, Huston's letters are a worthy legacy of an Oklahoma Rough Rider who played an important role in the military of Oklahoma and the United States.